Welcome to the Coach Trap podcast with your hosts Greg Styan and Dan Williams. This is where we break down all those marketing myths, tell it like it is, and drop a few hacks to help you go from invisible to irresistible. No fluff, just honest truths and maybe some sarcasm along the way. Let's dive in. Hi everyone, how's it going? Me and Dan Williams here to talk about why 86% of coaches fail. And not just fail, but maybe with a real particular look at X. And I'm here with the marketing Yoda himself, Dan Williams. How's it going, Dan?
I'll take marketing Yoda. My main aim for this podcast is not to get cancelled. So I should be all right.
I love that. That is brilliant. So if anyone's wondering when you listen to this back, me and Dan have worked together for some time. And I'm quite happy to admit that in 2023 I failed and in 2024 we succeeded. And me and Dan are here in 2025 to tell you how we done it, really, to share some of that expertise. And Dan, this is just a real honest truth, isn't it? A real debunk of some of the things that we did, some of the things that didn't work, and also what we've seen that others are doing.
Yeah, exactly. There's so much waffle out there. Like, it's hard to cut through the noise sometimes, isn't it?
Absolutely. So I thought, obviously, we're writing a book called The Coach Trap. It's a real honest sort of, a real truth of the situation and the daily fight that coaches have got. But the first section of the book is all about this why. 86% of coaches fail after a year, and 90% of those coaches fail in their second year. It's amazing, Dan, isn't it? I imagine, with the expertise you've got on X, how many coaches come and go. You must see that daily.
I think, obviously, some of the coaches are just bad coaches, but a lot of them are just bad marketers. And obviously, you don't get taught that when you're doing your coaching certifications or whatever, however expensive they are. So,
no, that's I think that's a really good point, isn't it? There's 70,000 ICF coaches, and they reckon there's 1 to 2 million clients a year between those 70,000. But what they're not telling you about those 70,000 is Tony Robbins has probably got 2/3 of them, if you like. So they're fighting for a very small percentile, if you like. So there's a few things, Dan, that I've noticed in particular. One of them is this authenticity. Like, how many people do we see daily where they're, like we call it the Canva mountain, or they're posting, quotes or Chinese proverbs I've seen as well. How much do you see that on a day, and what does that make you think when you see people, people going out with that?
to be honest, I've been there myself. I started for about 6 months. I was just hiding behind a logo. I used ChatGPT to make my tweets, and nothing was taken off. So obviously, I thought, fuck it, I'm just gonna be myself, and it just worked. It's
absolutely. Look, I was the same as well. And I think all coaches are. And like you said, the thing that you said they don't teach you. That's completely right. You go in there and it's just, that's what everyone thinks they have to do, isn't it?
You're only getting half the picture.
Absolutely. And I think that leads well, isn't it, to this 86%. I had a really good analogy for this, and it was told to me a long time ago. Obviously, I've developed it, for my own narrative, if you like. But all these coaches and all these freelancers and all these marketers and all these copywriters and all these guys, they start at the bottom of Mount Everest, and they all look at the top of Mount Everest and they see, Tony Robbins, James Smith, Hormozi, all these sort of people. And they all start the same ascent. And if you think that 86% of those are going to fail and they're going to fall, most of it is because they can't handle the climb. They don't have the right equipment. They can't handle the lack of oxygen, But if they train, and if they have the right equipment and the right mindset, and they're ready, prepared, then they might be that 10% that gets through, So this is what this is all about, isn't it, Dan? It's talking about, trying to help the people that are failing, because they don't get enough leads or enough clients, or they don't have enough perseverance, to give them a few sort of take homes, a few hacks, isn't it, Dan, to get them there, because you're like me, and this is a great way to start this all off. How many DMs do you get a week promising you 10K, 30 leads, You know, someone offered me someone said they could earn me 1.4 million a year. I had someone today telling me that they would earn me 7,000 every 3 days. Talk me through it. What do you get in your inbox?
See, they're just pulling numbers out of their arse. See, the
Absolutely.
amount of marketers I get in my DMs as a marketer is outrageous. Like, it's like they're not even doing any
Wow.
research whatsoever. I'm getting like
No.
100 plus a week on a good week.
That's more than me.
I know, it's ridiculous. It's outrageous.
That is, it is amazing. So it's just such a real cold outreach, isn't it? Cold being the word. And I've got a really good comment for this as well, because obviously it's not a hidden secret that me and Dan mentor a very select group of coaches as well, using some of these these debunking myths and strategies that we've created. But type A and type B. So obviously there's it's a very generalized view of people, but type A would be your cold callers. They would be the people that just hustle, Wolf of Wall Street types, only interest themselves, just money orientated. And then you got your type Bs, which are coaches, which are the nicest people in the world, kind, want to help people, organic. And the problem is type A's aren't very good at coaching, and type B's aren't very good at selling. So they've
Exactly.
got to, so that's it. So you need to find the middle ground, isn't it? And that's where I found you, Dan.
See, a lot of people think they're, grinding and they're not seeing results and they wonder why and they're stuck and then they quit. But what they're actually doing is they're not researching enough who they're actually outreaching to, because a lot of these
Yeah.
marketers, they're outreaching to another marketer. Like, it's just not going to work, is it?
No,
So you just want to educate
absolutely.
the people as much as possible.
Yeah, that's a really, really good way to see it. One of the things we've told a lot of these people when they get that, when they're getting these messages, these cold outreaches, these promises of 5K is just ignore it. Just ignore it. I think it's quite dangerous, to be honest. I think that there are so many people that will fall into the trap. I remember when I first started, Dan, and someone tried to get £6,000 at me, and I was very, very close, very, very close. I also remember, being invited to go to, I'm not going to say whose course it was. I went to, half of a 4-day event for free, but people had paid for go there for 4 days. And some of them had got loans out. Some of them had, whatever it was to go to this sort of stuff. It's that false profit idea. And there's so many of these guys, isn't there? So many charlatans, offering 10 grand, whatever it is. And I think it's dangerous. What as as a marketer, what's your views on that?
See, you actually stand out more when you don't offer a load of bollocks promises. You
Yep.
stand out when you're actually being yourself, saying, "Look, I think I can help you. Do you want to? Do you want to find out? Do you want to hop on a call?" And that stands
Yeah,
out. That's where you get the most results.
absolutely. I agree. I agree. Like I said, part of this first sort of like chapter, if you like, in me and Dan is just going over this, why 80 to 90% fell, and I think, like I said, Dan, me and you were both caught in that same first year trap. You don't really get taught to market. You might have the skills, but you fall into a trap of the Canva mountain, of the signatures, of the not the autographs, the Chinese proverbs. Going on Canva, copy and paste, Chat GTP, and the problem is 99% of coaches are doing that, aren't they? And that is the 99%, or the 90% who fail. So the ones who succeed are the ones that are more authentic, aren't they? That are speaking in their own voice, trying to reach out to their own tribe. What do you think about that? Do you agree with that, or have you got like a different view on sort of like finding trends or finding, like reaching out to individual people?
I think a big misconception is you need millions of followers to make money online, which is completely wrong.
Absolutely,
You need,
absolutely.
like, I signed my first client at 30 followers, like, and that was when I was building personal brands as well. 30 followers. I wouldn't buy from me at that point, but
Yeah.
I did it. So you don't need millions of
Well,
followers.
Well, Dan, we're in this position at the moment, aren't we? Where there's people with 50, 60,000 followers coming to ask for our expertise and asking for some of our strategies that we've created because they're struggling to nail down individual clients. They might be able to get interest, but not necessarily converting them or have the tactics. Because this isn't just about marketing yourself, is it? It's about the strategy down the line, getting them to a discovery call and then mastering the discovery call as well. There's a whole new tactic for that, but stuff that you're not taught, like you have to work it out through trial and error, and obviously stuff that we're going to dive into later. We're not going to give any gems yet, are we? So and we've obviously got to be a little careful with some of the stuff that we say so early. But I think like the first thing that I'd say to anyone who's listening, and the first thing that me and you found, Dan, in particular, was being authentic and actually not looking for clients per se, but going to build authority and then acquiring clients as a byproduct of that, isn't it? Do you agree with that? Do you think that's a good strategy to have? Do you think that would, obviously, I think this is why so many fail as well, because they set themselves the wrong goals, which is something that I was going to talk about as well. What do you think about that?
I think a lot of people are creating content just to make that post go viral. There's no strategy behind it, and then they're wondering why they're not getting the leads in. They're just getting likes. They're making content to release dopamine in people, but it's not making an impact.
And that's a really good point. There's some very good 20-year-old life coaches who are fantastic on CapCut and not so good at teaching, or have the life experiences to help others. And this is the trap, isn't it, Dan? This is what we're talking about. This is one of those many traps. The market is saying about 5,000, 10,000 a month, 30 leads, leading you into something which isn't actually going to happen, which is like a false profit idea. And I think that's another one as well. This creating of viral content sometimes, where we've worked out something else, haven't we? We've worked out that you don't need, it doesn't need to go that viral, but if it resonates, if it really resonates with a certain type of person who's looking for it, you've got a much greater opportunity, haven't you, to convert. Have you had the same experiences, Dan, as well?
Yeah, it only needs to reach that one person, It's only that one warm DM that you send, and it reaches that one guy, and loads of doors open up for you,
That's great. I mean, it's the same thing you said about having the 30 followers, wasn't it? It was the same thing. It's like you put out one thing and it resonates. It's from the heart.
Exactly, yeah. It's just all about being authentic. And obviously everyone says that. It sounds ridiculous, but that's just what you've got to do. And most people still aren't doing it. So I'm going to keep saying it until most people are doing it.
Dan, I think there's some real gold there, isn't it? In the idea of being authentic, not worrying so much about those viral moments that maybe aren't quite real, that aren't quite organic, if that makes sense, in actually, putting something out which is from the heart, aimed at a certain type of person. I think that's it's a really interesting point. But another thing that I think is interesting is goal setting. I think that lots of coaches get into the coaching space for the wrong reason, and this leads into that people saying 5K, 10K, 30 leads, where it's measurable, or it's trying to reach into goal results, money-driven results, when actually, going back to that type A or type B person, that if you're in this industry for money, it's not necessarily the right industry for you. On the marketing side, I'd probably disagree with that and say, obviously, yes, there's got to be tangible outcomes. You've got to have goals. You want to earn money and stuff. The difference between type A and type B. But as a coach, that's probably where the bad content is put out, isn't it? Where you're desperate to reach those amounts. What do you think about that, Dan?
I'm pretty confident that 90% of coaches, I can tell you whether they're there to make money or to actually make an impact, purely based on what kind of content they're making.
Absolutely.
Most aren't using storytelling, which is one of the chapters in our book. A little plug there. Storytelling's a massive thing. It's what sets you apart from the rest of the people. It's personal brand for a reason.
That's pure gold there, Dan. And like I said, we're mentoring these coaches as well. We call that the slap, don't we? Where it's your biggest weapon, I think, to resonate with people. The idea that you don't need hundreds of thousands, you need one or two, and that one or two to really resonate with that message. And you can't lead others down a path if you haven't walked it yourself. But I think there's some real gold there. So obviously, Dan, we're doing this over a long period of time, aren't we? You know, we've created a book based on our experiences. You know, in 2024, 2023, I failed. In 2023, me and Dan succeeded, and we created a little strategy to get us there, didn't we? You know, so some of the aspects we're going to cover, Dan, isn't it? You know, is even going as deep as your profile picture and your banners, and you know, putting out short form stuff. Anything else you can think about? Any other gems you think that would be great to talk about in the future based on our book?
I think a massive thing as well, which is also in our book, is the analytics side of things, like learning
Yeah,
from the content that you're making. Because for a long time, I just didn't look at the analytics because it was too scary. You didn't want to see all the posts that had done badly. But
yeah.
when you actually look at them, you need to understand what went well, what could have been done better, so that you can actually improve.
Excellent. Yeah, that's such a good point, isn't it? You know, and actually, we've done that a lot on the work that we've done together, haven't we? Is actually trying to get my message across, but to do it in a way which resonates, isn't it? You know, um, are you a fan of trends and stuff? Do you look too much into that, Dan, or are you more one for this like authentic self, this sort of like personal voice?
To be honest, if I see something trending on the hashtags and stuff, I will maybe use that keyword in my content just to get a
Yeah,
little bit of that visibility. Because you've got to have a mix between the posts that are reaching a lot of people, so that you keep getting that reach, you keep getting people in the door, but you've also got to make the content that makes people want to buy from you and makes them like kind of understand you as a person.
absolutely. Absolutely. But like I said, Dan, this is only like a little introduction, isn't it, to some of the stuff that we're going to speak about in the book, like some honest truths of what failed, and some real honest truths of what successes we had, isn't it? And to analyze the differences, like the analytics. That's, we didn't use data in the first round. I was all about getting viral moments or trying to, this whole Canva Mountain idea. Well, actually, we changed it a lot, didn't we? On the second year, we looked at data. We started to look at a few of the trends. Started to really think about my authentic self, my voice, and all that sort of stuff. And it's worked really well, isn't it, Dan, with some of the other coaches that we work with. And it's amazing, isn't it, when they come in that something they are all quite, I'm going to say it out loud, clueless about, isn't it? This putting themselves out there. But are there any other, just on a final note, Dan, to finish, what's the funniest DM that you've had regarding this false prophet idea?
I did get a guy tell me he could get me, I think it was 1,000 followers. Bearing in mind I'm over that, and he had about 20. Quite an interesting DM. To be honest, I've stopped reading most of them now at this point, which is why I'm such a hater of cold outreach. Like, honestly, I'll only read
Dan,
messages.
do you answer any of them back? Do you answer any of them back?
Oh no, definitely not.
So me and Dan had a funny chat today because we exchanged this that we done on our WhatsApp group, and I had one that reached out to me today saying, do you have a second? And I was like, well, actually, I've got 28,400 seconds, and I'm obviously spending 14,000 of those playing golf, 8,000 of those coaching, 4,000 of those with my wife. You've got 4,000 seconds to grab my attention. I've started playing with some of these guys who send me these messages just for fun.
Did you reply
Um,
to that?
yes, he did.
What did he
Yes, he
say?
did. No, he just went straight forward with it to his little funnel and sent me this. You should check this out. Um, and I had another one that messaged me recently, offering me two playbooks. And this is really funny. So he said the playbooks will earn you 7,000 or 4,000. No, 3,000, 3,000 and 4,000. I said, how much for these playbooks? And the grand total was 10 grand. So I said, hang on. So I'm losing money. So if I'm going to pay you to set this up and to run the ads, you know, it's that is how laughable some of this is, though, Dan, isn't it? That's why it's so, that's why we're here, isn't it? Is to just speak honestly about it, to make sure people don't fall into the trap. And Dan, I'm well aware this is going to get us some haters. I'm well aware we're going to be, putting ourselves out there for some, maybe some abuse, maybe some, maybe some comments. But what do you think about that?
See, I always live by the rule that you've got to piss off 20% of people. Because
That is
otherwise,
fantastic. Well,
otherwise, no one's gonna really resonate with you. You've got to stand for something. That's what a brand is.
well, maybe that's part of this, isn't it? You know, you don't have to please everyone.
No,
You don't
definitely
have
not.
to please everyone. You've only got to please your tribe, haven't you?
You got to
You've
please
only got
that
to
one
reach out.
client.
Absolutely. I think this is part of this message, isn't it? Is why people may be getting this so wrong. I'm not saying everyone's getting it wrong, but 90% fail. So it's a massive number. It's a massive number in it of those people that have got that book wrong. Like marketers reaching out to me saying about money. I was like, no, that's not what I need. Like you're missing the point. I want to help people, not necessarily make money. I've already made my money in life, and I think that's where somebody's get this wrong, isn't it? But yeah, Dan, it's going to be a real fascinating journey, and we've got some real gems, haven't we, to discuss with people. And I'm really looking forward to when we go in and talk about the profile pictures, because we've done. Obviously, we've posted this, haven't we, and done a survey and got some results back. And there's been some interesting messages. I've had some really interesting responses about that, and that's something we're going to speak about at a later date, isn't there? But is there anything else you want to finish off with, Dan?
I'm all good. I'm just looking forward to sharing the knowledge that I've gained over the past few years. All those failures.
Good stuff. Good stuff. And for anyone who's listened or listening late, the market in Yoda does have some real gems. Definitely sees it from a different perspective. So it's a fantastic listen for everyone. But like I said, I'm well aware that me and Dan might get some haters, but Dan wants to annoy 20% of everyone that listens to him. So that's good. You're on to a winner, Dan.
Brilliant. Perfect. I'll be back
And we're
next
going to
week.
continue. And me as well, because I'm the same, because I just want to speak some honest truths, and I don't want to see coaches spend their life savings or fall into the trap. I think so many have done it, and I think that something almost needs to be said, doesn't it? Where yeah, we need to reverse that. We need to get these guys looking forward, and we don't want to see 90% of coaches fail, do we? We want to see them be more successful. So, Dan, look, as always, it's been a pleasure. I always love listening to your perspective, and I'm looking forward to doing this again. Next week, I'm in Egypt, so maybe I'll have to do it from Luxor at the Valley of Kings. But we're going to try and do this every week, Dan, aren't we?
Yeah, exactly. Sort of flex there in Egypt.
I'm looking forward to. Well, I'm going there for some inspiration, obviously, Dan. So great stuff, buddy. Really enjoyed it.
All right, thank you. First podcast
No
done.
problem. Done.